Welcome back to the Daily Vibe. Please like and subscribe to hear our upcoming podcast. We have some incredible content coming your way. As always, I'm Kudu. My mom did name me Josh, though.
I'm that guy, but if we're being serious, I just go by Lane. We are humbled and excited to introduce our next guest. He comes from the finance world, but he's grown and developed esports in Africa, founding ATK Arena.
That's right. Now, ATK is dedicated to celebrating gaming with their 9 current teams. They are not only helping young athletes in Africa, but they look to make an impact on the international scene. Please welcome Warren Barkhuizen. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Perhaps you could start by telling us a little bit about ATK and why you wanted to start the organization.
This is a story I tell often, actually. Everybody asks, why did you do this? How did you know to get into it? When you work in finance, part of the role is before you buy into a company and you invest other people's money into a company, you have to look at where you're spending your money and what they're spending their money on. There was this company called Naspers, which is more than half the stock exchange basically
Yeah, yeah.
these days. And they had bought into a company called Tencent. And Tencent, as we know, has invested in everything, and including Epic, right? And the more I looked at it, and this was 6 years ago, 7 years ago, the more you look into it, the more you realize that esports and gaming as a culture, it's becoming more than just something as a hobby. It's something that is an actual industry in itself, attracting massive investments and actually a massive reflection on the balance sheet of companies like Tencent and and by its nature, Naspers. So then obviously you look into it and you look at, well, they've done very well overseas. What's the propensity for it to spill over into Africa and South Africa? And then you ask yourself, well, what's happened in South Africa? And the answer was not much, not very much, which makes you think, well, there's got to be a good reason for it. So um, you you realize, and as an outsider, you've got to work out where the issues may be, where
Mm-hmm.
what's obvious. The old saying, you don't know if you're too close to it, you can't tell the wood from the trees. Um, it That's potentially true. You sit there and you go, as an outsider, you actually have a benefit. You can go, there are certain things that just aren't in place
Mm-hmm.
that you cannot, that is hindering the growth. Now, and then you have to make assumptions. You ask a couple of questions. Most of the guys involved are very young, um, and they've never run a business, or they've run some form of a business, but it's never really taken off. And they haven't got that background to keep them going. And the conclusion I came to was that there's a couple of things that stand in our way. What differentiates us in the gaming, our gaming scene, to an American scene or a European scene, and that is essentially, to my mind, was the lack of infrastructure. So you go, well, yes, we have connectivity, and yes, there was fiber coming in, so that's okay, but it's still expensive, and it's not everywhere, and it's obviously in the last few years it's gotten a bit better. But then you look at a gaming PC, like a machine. Like anybody can afford a console, or most people could afford a console.
Yeah.
Um, and to be able to compete, you have to have a higher level of machinery. You can't like get away with just kicking around in your boots. Um, you you need to have that level of machinery. It's like driving a car on a racetrack. You need a fast car, otherwise you won't be competitive. Same thing
Yeah.
with gaming.
Yeah.
Locally, you know, people don't earn as much as people earn in the states. Even in the states, I guess, or in developed parts of the world, the first world, people won't have 240 hertz monitors. That's not really. It's not everybody has that. They're expensive. To drive a 240 hertz monitor, you need a proper graphics card, and to get the most of the graphic card, you need a processor. You're at a 2 times the average national salary, um, uh, before you've even started. You
Yeah.
haven't got a mouse, a keyboard, anything. So it's prohibitive. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to lay down the foundation. Um, Once you got the foundation, that's great. But there was only one or two major competitions in the country
Yeah.
at that point that would happen annually. And then what? So, you expect these people to go in and invest their time and their money and get to a point for one competition. That's not really, it doesn't tell the true tale. So from that, you lay down the foundations, grassroots, everybody gets a machine, and then you throw a regular tournament. So we started with once a month. We throw a tournament, um, and it was just about, okay, well, how often will people come to the tournaments? And then it moved on from once a month to once every 2 weeks to last year we ended up hosting 85 tournaments.
Wow.
So it's, and in that way you give away regular small amounts of cash, but you actually end up giving away more cash than anybody. So I think we ended last year 85 tournaments, 1.2, 1.3 million rands worth of prizes.
Wow.
So that's
Awesome.
significant.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And when you when you first came into ATK and you decided that this is what you wanted to do, is create the foundation for African esports, what really were your biggest challenges when you were first trying to get the arena going, get the tournaments going?
The biggest challenge actually initially was buying the hardware. I think Bitcoin was doing things, and cryptocurrencies, you just couldn't buy the hardware. And then the next thing was trying to find a venue.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to give us a venue. Everybody thought we were kind of setting up gambling or pinball machines and that type of thing, or Pac-Man, like arcades. So
Yeah.
it's like educating landlords was one thing, and that was the first almost 6 or 7 months of like, okay, here are the plans, here's the business plan. And they were like, no, we don't want gambling. And we're like, no, it's not gambling. And then you'd have to explain yourself like 100 times. And
Yeah.
most people would just end up ignoring you. So we found one place, like I wasn't keen on the area, but literally it was the only place we give us space. And I had to pay the full year up front in cash, like to put it all down
Wow.
before they'd let us even move in. And then we could move,
Holy.
and then we could go. So they were just, nobody was convinced. After 3 months of operating, everything changes. Now everybody wants to give you space. So that was the major hurdle. When it comes to tournaments, people rock up for tournaments. You give away just small amounts of cash, or if you go, it is expensive, obviously. Thankfully, we're able to self-fund. So getting the money together to buy the PCs, and we didn't start big. We had 20 of the best machines that you could buy at the time. So it's i7s, GTX 1080s, put some sim racing stuff down, put some consoles down, deck it out, make it look good, and people arrived. And
Wow.
from there, moved on very quickly from there.
Yeah, I was going to say, to give the listeners a little bit of perspective, they're now up to 59 PCs, like 3 Xbox Ones, six Nintendos, 6 sim racing rigs. Like, it's become a very impressive place to go gaming.
Yeah, the highest end that we could purchase at the time. Actually, we're coming to the cycle now where we're going to start upgrading again. But we still have 240 hertz monitors for everybody. We still have Logitech G Pro, everything on the desks. You can choose the type of mouse pad you want. If you want to stream, that's one thing that we have a big presence in, and a big investment is we've got a pretty large streaming room, 5 PCs in there, fully kitted out, key lights, stream decks, you name it, you can get it. So it's just a good place to come and spend time, or and compete. So when you host a competition, you want to have the best. There should be no excuses. You don't want to be like a racing driver. Racing drivers are the best. They'll complain about the car and they'll complain about everything. You don't want that. You want the guys to come in, everybody's got the same, and you can't say, oh, his machine's better than mine, I'm dropping frames. That's not even a thing now. So yeah, it's a good place to be.
So, kind of backtracking here, what was the first game that got you interested in the gaming world when you first started off?
In this iteration, I've been playing games for longer than both of you have been alive, probably put together. I play. Okay, look, right in the beginning, I played games like Paddle, like everybody knows Paddle, which was kind of the first video game there was. Later on, I actually started writing games. 1987, I started writing games because there weren't games. I actually have the PC sitting over there that I started writing games on in 1987. And then I think, I kind of fell away from gaming. I'd always played a lot of racing games through the kind of mid '90s to when Need for Speed's first iteration came out.
Yeah.
First person shooters like Duke Nukem, Doom, obviously in mid '90s, Quake. So those were always things that like kept me going. You live in a house full of guys. That was early 2000s. We'd have like I networked out the whole house. Everybody had a PC, and we used to play Team Arena until all sorts of stupid hours of the night. And
That's
Age of
awesome.
Empires too, which is still a thing these
That's
days.
still an incredible game. I still play that game.
Yeah. In fact, I used Age of Empires. There was somebody looking to get a job here, doing a couple of things here, and just well, I was going to employ him anyway, but just as a joke, I said, if you can beat me at Age of Empires, I'll employ you. So we did a cool stream, and we played Age of Empires, and off he went. Now he's been with us for a year and a bit.
That's incredible.
So, yeah, and in this iteration, it's more sim racing between sim racing and Counter Strike. Those are the obvious ones.
Yeah.
And the first team we acquired actually was an Overwatch team.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the most popular competitive games. I mean, there's 5-6 players now, and it's a true team esport.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a 6v6.
Yeah,
I call it CrossFit for the eyes. Like I find Overwatch incredibly hard to watch, but I love Overwatch. It's just a lot going on. So, unless you know what's going on, like you need a caster, you need somebody.
Yeah, it's very fast.
Planning it, yeah. And you need a mega machine to run it properly. So
yeah. So obviously you're known as a gamer with all of your athletes, and I've seen numerous tweets from some of your athletes saying, "Oh, they just pulled a Warren." Now I've been interested since I saw that tweet. I was like, "What does that even mean?" So can you please explain to me what pulling a Warren is?
Okay, so that come from, and don't tell anybody. But if every day I sit in a meeting, I sit like today I've had a half an hour break. Every day I sit in meetings for hours, like literally hours, and sometimes they're great, and sometimes it's just people talking.
Yeah.
And most of the time I have Counter Strike open, so I sit very quietly. So there's not a lot of strafing, or I'm not moving around a lot, but I sit very quietly with a Zeus, and just to meme, I will Zeus people as they come past. Now Zeus, if people don't know, it's like a taser gun.
Yeah.
But it's one shot and you're dead. And it's the best. So like, pulling a Warren, what I did was I was sitting in a meeting. I have one set strat and Mirage. I run to B, I throw out smoke, and I sit in the corner. I wait for them to just push through, assuming that I'm not going to be, and I just hide in the corner. So I Zeus the one guy, and I just started like playing around with capturing the game. So I Zeus the guy, looked left, and there were two guys standing there, and I took both of them out. It was a lucky shot. And it was like, yeah, and that became pulling a Warren. It's just a meme. It's like it's worse than being knifed, I suppose.
Yeah, so you created your own meme amongst your own athletes. That's awesome.
They gave it the name. I was just like, this is cool, man. I was literally busy doing a deal, and I'm like Zeusing somebody and having the time of my life.
It's like the epitome of gaming.
Yeah. I've actually some of the biggest deals I've ever cut. I've been playing in Counter Strike. I've been playing Counter Strike and like with the mic on, and I'm like, everybody just heard me make the deal. Like, I need to like switch my mic off.
You're just like, mute.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes I forget though as well, which is a problem.
So it seems like you really like obviously care about your athletes a lot. What are some other ways that you try and develop your relationship with your athletes?
Look, what we do is it's not good enough to just pay them salaries. I mean, obviously we do, and we may be one of the only orgs in the country, at least, that pays a salary to everybody. Everybody gets a monthly, and we support them in the usual ways that you would expect, hardware and all the rest of it. We check in with them once a month. We have a person allocated. So I personally talk to them once a month and have an hour session where we go through whatever's bothering them. If there are issues, we try to address them. We've got a sports psychologist that we allocate to work through any issues.
That's awesome.
And it makes a lot of sense. I mean, they're sportsmen. We encourage healthy lifestyles. There's CrossFit trainers on the premises. There was a gym above us initially, and we used to take the guys through training. Unfortunately, that shut down. COVID's kind of not been good to them.
Yeah.
But we subsidize gym memberships if the guys want them. So we have a deal with the gym that's in the building. So if the guys are here, they can come back and forth.
Wow.
We encourage just healthy lifestyles. And there is a person allocated, a number of people that they can call if there's a problem, if they need something, if there's something that is getting in the way of them performing. And I'm in all of the groups, so
Wow.
they can contact me whenever. And they do. It's like stupid hours, but it happens.
So that's just gamers in general. They're always up at weird hours.
Yeah, I know. I understand that as a concept.
So you said you were talking about hardware for your athletes, and I saw that you guys are partnered with Omen, Logitech, Elgato. How did you get approached by them, or how did you approach them as far as starting a sponsorship relationship?
What really helps with us is that we have a venue where people can come and use their products. So these are endemics, i.e., they are tech providers. They want people to use their products. So the fact that you have a venue, and this is a pretty big investment where I am now, it's easy. You start off as a client, and you become sponsor. You create a sponsorship relationship because you're discussing kind of on both sides of the table. So that makes opening the conversation very easy. Obviously, if you start winning a lot, people want to get behind the winners. That's why we invest heavily in our players. If they want to go overseas, we send them overseas. If they want to go play a tournament in Dubai, no problem. Get your visas. We'll help you with that. Get them across, and they get experience. So it's a relatively simple conversation when you're winning. It's to the point where you end up like saying, look, I'm already with people, so like you can't necessarily sleep around. You're stuck with guys, and you end up turning sponsors away, it's a very nice position to be in. But we backed ourselves. We spent the money up front, and we got results. I mean, those are the boxes you want to tick, right? And we're ever present. Social media, any game where our guys are playing, we make sure it's streamed. We'll pay casters if it isn't being cast by the official tournament organizer. If we throw an event, we'll ensure that there's always media and content around it. So, we know what people want, what they look for. So you just got to ensure that you tick the boxes and prove that you've done it. We report at the end of everything. We give them a full report at the end of every event, at the end of everything. So there's no question marks. There's no smoke and mirrors. It's very public.
So you spoke a little bit about like sending your players overseas, and now I'm not sure if you can like speak about it at all. But about a year ago, you spoke about a relationship that was building with an NGO in the UK, and now I wasn't able to find anything else on that besides that interview. So were you guys able to create that relationship with that NGO in the UK, or what are ATK's plans moving forward, like getting internationally?
Look, okay, so we still talk to them. We still talk to, at the end of the day, we actually talk to almost everybody. So I speak to everybody from Excel to Cloud9. I mean, so I've got all of the CEO's details, and we chat through various means. I had to talk to Envy with Sonic's move and whatnot. But and obviously all the local guys. So the guys in the UK, we still chat. They were just starting out. They were only in one title. They wanted to branch out. So we were working with them to see, okay, well, what can we do? And we actually still might do stuff. So I'm not going to say it yet, but you'll see eventually. What was the rest of it? Sending guys overseas,
or just like how you guys plan on taking like your athletes internationally and competing internationally?
Look, sending people offshore, competing in South Africa is one thing. It's a relatively small player base. It's the skills. There's a big skill gap. Obviously, the guys haven't spent a lot of time. It's a new market, so for us to reach the top of South African esports, it's not particularly difficult. It does require investment, but you become accustomed to a certain style of playing, and I'm aware of that. So we have realistic expectations of how well we'll do if we go. You can't just pick the guys up, the number one in South Africa, move them overseas, and think they're going to do very well.
Yeah.
The first person to tell me that was, in fact, Tian, TC, who's now with Cloud9. And he's like, you need a year minimum just to get used to it. And, the Rand, local currency doing what it is, that's an expensive exercise.
Yeah.
You have to perform, or you have to have somebody helping you out with those costs. Like what we budgeted for, and I'm sure people are aware of it. The team currently with Cloud9 was a team that moved over with another organization. They failed. They moved to another org, just trying to make ends meet, trying to get through. Kind of fell flat there, and we picked them up. And our budget for that was R1 million. I said, okay, R1 million to just keep you going for a period of time. We went way over 3 times that in like half the time.
Wow.
It was just, it's an expensive exercise.
Yeah.
And people shouldn't fool themselves. Like, if you're going to go across, you're not going to win immediately. Just getting a house set up anywhere is expensive. So we've got realistic expectations. Our Counter-Strike team is doing phenomenally well locally.
Yeah.
And we're preparing them here before we move them offshore by giving them all the same tools, and getting international coaches. That helps, so that they have a different style of play, and that they are kind of ready for when they hit the ground. They can hopefully hit the ground, not quite running, but at like a slow jog. And we'll see how we go. So the Counter-Strike guys are looking to go. Rainbow Six Siege team is looking to go. Apex Legends team is doing phenomenally well, even though they play from here, and like 200 ping on a first-person shooter must be like,
It must be brutal.
murder.
I would never be able to do it. No.
And they were ranked higher than TSM at one point. So I mean, 7th in the world at 200 ping. Jeepers! Imagine if they got overseas.
Imagine.
And played. We did send them early in the year, but the events got cancelled because of COVID. So they spent a lot of time in an aeroplane to go in boot camp ultimately.
Yeah.
And then if you look, League of Legends doing pretty well. I mean, we've got kind of African, I suppose, domination. There's some events happening which are Africa wide. So it's anybody that wants to go overseas, we'll give the opportunity. We sent 2 of our Fortnite players across early in the year. But again, realistic expectations. It's for their benefit more than ours. And if they do well, great. And I'm looking forward to the next iteration when the guys go for the CS in North America. That should be really good.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Obviously, when it comes to sim racing, for example, which I'm very close to, sim racing is one of those things where 200 ping doesn't really matter. You can deal with it, and our guys compete from here and they do great. So it's that's kind of not really necessary.
Sure. So obviously, you guys have a lot of teams, and one of the teams I've been, I guess, impressed with is that you have a Counter-Strike women-specific team.
Yep.
So I just want to hear a little bit more about what ATK is doing to promote the growth of women in esports.
Look, for me, it made no sense that women and men were separated in esports. It didn't make any sense. Like, you didn't have any physical abilities that stopped you from moving your mouse quicker. So actually, like, my mandate for the ladies in the team was, look, I want you guys to beat the boys. I want you to play yes, there are women's leagues here, but I want it to go. I'll give you all the tools you require to play with the men, and they are. And there should be no distinction between the two.
Yeah, I agree.
Mixed teams have been a thing locally. So I think, again, it's like looking at the reason that there aren't women's teams.
Yeah.
Or that there aren't. It's not prevalent. And basically, my assumption is that there's just not enough opportunity. There's not enough incentive. There's not enough reason to have to do this. It's kind of a thing that's kind of frowned upon, maybe. And I want to show the support to say, look, it's 100% okay to be a female gamer. It's like, there's,
Yeah.
I don't see any issue with it. And I don't see why there should be any issue. And they should be able to play at the highest level. And
Yeah.
we kind of are seeing that, they they're spending the time. They've got now recently they've got an international coach as well to help them out.
Very nice.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
It's that playing field should be completely level.
Yeah. Would you
And it should
say?
be, yeah.
Sorry, would you say that so the people that organize tournaments and such, like especially the ones that organize like women-specific tournaments, do you think we should look at doing away with those women-specific tournaments and just say like, listen, if you're a women's only team, you should just compete with everyone else?
I think it is difficult for the women's teams to go and ride in there with the men, especially there is a level of toxicity in the scene or kind of anywhere where women get given a hard time,
Yeah.
and we can complain about it all we like, but to make them feel comfortable and to make it less of an issue to get involved in esports, keep a women's side.
Yeah.
It's let them compete amongst themselves, but they should be competing at a level where the men are playing. Now, the men have had a number of years of competing amongst themselves. Women just getting in. You got to start somewhere. I would say keep them both, but the women should play with the men in the higher kind of brackets of esports.
Yeah.
Counter-Strike is a good example of that. So yeah, there's a place for everything, and it's the women's stuff is great, and then they need to make it easy to get involved.
Yeah.
So you touched on toxicity. What is ATK doing as far as like, are you guys going through a course on like, hey, this is the standard of play that we want you to? Is it kind of just like one of those things that is just involved with gaming that you're like, look, I can't really control what this person's doing? Or is there an ATK standard as far as conducting yourself?
Well, there is in fact, just rewritten all of the players' contracts to include clauses on good behavior, maintaining professional standards. Obviously, it takes, even though it's easy to attract investors and sponsors, you need to keep those guys happy and present yourself, and the teams need to present themselves and represent the sponsors and their brands in a professional manner. So it's all built into the contracts. We keep a very close eye on everything they do, social media wise. If there's anything that's untoward, we are on it like white on rice, and we'll make sure that is either taken down or we deal with it. We have had to drop people in the past, we try to do the right thing, like give them a warning, to explain to them, like show them the area and their ways. But if they're just not willing to change, unfortunately, we can't have brand risk for ourselves or anybody else. So, and we explain that in a nice way. So, we treat it like you would in any other kind of sport. If there's a major infringement, obviously we take serious action against it.
Yeah.
If it's something where it's obviously like what will happen is, we have noticed that guys will try to bait you into raging, I guess,
Yeah.
or try to incite something out of guys, and we'll take it on a case by case basis. And obviously, we'll give them some kind of guidance on, what's the right way to try to conduct yourself.
Yeah.
In fact, the something that we've been putting into place this week is arranging some kind of training courses around how to conduct yourself in the social environment,
nice.
and what proper kind of ways to deal with situations is. So we're giving it a go. I mean, there will always be the guys and the toxicity that happens when the person is sitting behind a keyboard and is willing to say whatever comes to their mind without any thought. And it's something that you can try to fix, but you got to approach it from within and present yourself in a professional manner.
Now, you mentioned a little bit about like educating your own athletes and such. With the ATK Arena, do you guys teach your athletes or people that come into the arena, how to set up a YouTube, how to set up a Twitch streaming channel, maybe how contracts work? Because a lot of these kids coming into esports are so young, they don't even know what
Yeah,
a contract is or how serious it could be.
yeah. Obviously, we do encourage them to get their own advice, especially when we're on the other side of the contract.
Yeah.
When it comes to setting up and getting taught lessons and taught how to set up Twitch and YouTube and all those fun things, we have guys on the ground who are all gamers. Guys like Grant Hines, who is probably quite well known,
Hmm.
obviously very well known here. He's here, and we're developing courses with him. I, in fact, help some universities in the UK with with esports degrees. Um, so we are all about continuously educating people, and that's kind of a nice thing about coming here. You won't always have Elgato Stream Decks or machines that are ready for streaming and all that type of thing set up. And if people come in here and don't know how to do something, everybody's more than willing to help. It's there are people allocated to streaming. There are people allocated to individual games. People might want to know about new games. A lot of what happens is we educate the adults. So if an adult brings in his kids or somebody, there's a childminder that comes with the kids, we let them play for free with
Okay.
them. So there's no charge. You bring your kids, you can play, no problem, and we'll take them through. Some racing is an easy one. They probably drove you in a car. You can jump in the car and now you can race virtually,
Yeah.
and we'll take them through, and then we'll set them up to play with the kids, and it's actually a very successful thing and you kind of get these people that are the bullies. What the word
Yeah.
bullies means. So the
Yeah.
old people will come in and they'll play with their kids, and it's a bit of a strange thing, and they'll, Dad, you're doing it wrong, and this, that, and the other thing, and it's kind of cool. So we're all about the education,
Yeah.
through every sector.
So walk us through the recruiting process of a team or as like individuals, as far as what you guys are looking for throughout South Africa or even internationally.
Um, okay, so the recruiting process. Okay, so in terms of the professionals that would work here, we try to get young people, for gaming enthusiasts. You should be a gamer if you work here. It would kind of make no sense if you don't understand what you're dealing with.
Hmm.
So on the ground, you would have to have a technical background of some sort. You need to know how the network works. Obviously, we have a way of doing things here that's all set up. It's kind of more what would be referred to as first line support when you're on the floor. Um, but it's not only in the arena. So you when you walk in here, you see a couple of people, but there's a lot of people behind the scenes. There's accountants and lawyers. There's graphic designers. You know there's engineers. There's everybody. And we'll go through it on a as as a fit for its needs kind of basis. A lot of the time, people come in and say, "I want to get involved in esports and I don't know how." So in that way, we'll usually send them through an internship where they basically will touch on every little piece of the business. We'll obviously evaluate the person themselves and then their
Hmm.
ability to complete tasks and kind of the basic stuff. But if they just have a genuine interest in it and they can show CV, or maybe they're well known in the community, we'll run them through every single piece. So from the front desk to sales to support to streaming, and basically after a couple of weeks or months, um, we would have either internally worked out where they would be best suited, or they'll say, look, they're really interested in this, that, or the other thing. Like we've got events and it's pretty wide ranging in terms of what we do here.
Mm.
Um, we'll make a plan from there. It's actually relatively, it's not like a normal job interview process, like I told you earlier.
Yeah.
Like beat me at Age of Empires
Yeah.
and you
Let's
got a
play
job
again.
kind of thing. Yeah. And we end up spending a lot of time together. So we got to all get on, and
Hmm.
that's important as well. It's like we expect people to we work hard and we play hard. It's corny as that sounds, it's true. We have once a month we all go out and we really let our hair down. We convert this whole venue. It used to be a nightclub. We convert it back into a nightclub.
Back
Red
into a
Bull brings in
nightclub.
their stuff, and we go ballistic. We have a LAN for 5 hours, and then as long as you can stand is the rest of it. So it's it's one of those environments where it's kind of a lot of give and take.
Yeah.
From a recruitment from a team perspective, we throw a lot of events. So, and our events in many ways is a recruitment process for a team. We'll keep an eye on the guys that really stand out, and that's how we acquire. So like people can essentially regard our events as one big recruitment project.
Awesome.
We'll take cues and we'll like we'll ask around, and because we're in a position where we can pay people and pay salaries and give the support and the infrastructure. People come to us and they have hardware issues. We will help out immediately. There should never be a hardware issue if you're involved with us.
Hmm.
And so we have a lot of coming towards us, but we filter it out through events or looking at past results.
Yeah.
Um,
So obviously you've been really focused at building the entire foundation of the esports community in Africa. Is there something that really stands out to you within that community that you really hope or that you really enjoy or love about the African esports community?
you know what? It's hard to it's hard to touch on every single part of esports in South Africa or in Africa in general.
Yep.
It's just so much to do. There's and in that there's so many opportunities, and that's what I really enjoy about it. Like as a business person, to come into a new industry, it's okay. It's not new, but it's relatively new compared to everything else, and it's been running in a way that you can, as an outsider, like I mentioned before, it is easy to see where you can improve.
Yeah.
When you're on the outside, it's easy. Like the guys that have been doing it for too long, that it's all about timing. It's like investing. Yeah, it's all about getting the right timing into your investment. And basically, we got in what I felt was slightly early, but enough time for us to learn the ropes.
Yeah.
And learn, really analyze it on the ground. The sheer amount of skill that exists in this country is the other thing. There is a massive amount of skill. It's like prospecting for diamonds. There are diamonds everywhere. It's just about finding the right ones and saying, well, I'm going to invest in this and I'm going to take it through. And there's a team called Cloud9. They understood that there's 3 South Africans in the team and they're doing really well. I mean, that's we reached the pinnacle. That's as good as you're going to get as a South African. Just getting overseas, that's all they want to do. They want to go. A lot of the guys just want to get overseas and play to show how good they are. And I really, seeing that process of a guy going from, on the bones of his ass trying to make it through to playing, sitting in a house in Cloud9 is a real thing, right? I mean, that's very satisfying. And there's tons of those stories that are waiting. You've got guys not only in our org, but like Goliath, have Julio, who's doing really great FIFA, on the FIFA side. You got streamers and players in Hearthstone and all sorts of other games that we don't touch, who are incredibly talented and they could do really well if they were given the opportunity.
And that's what you want to do.
Well, we can't do everything.
Yeah.
Exactly. You can't do everything, but you choose the ones that you can help out. We'll get there eventually.
Wow. Well, Warren, I cannot thank you enough for coming on this podcast. I absolutely love how much ATK take care of their athletes and aim to build that foundation for those athletes. It's really incredible what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
I
And
was
thanks for
happy
having me.
to. Yeah, thank you for coming on. I'm happy to find out what pulling a Warren was. And
It's very satisfying. You can try it.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. As always, please like and subscribe. Don't forget to check out our socials. Our splash page is up on vibrantnetwork.com. Until next time, cheers.